So then we look at the ECI. Very similar process. I've highlighted in orange, I think that's orange, the areas of difference. So developer purchases a developer site. Developer appoints an architect and a preferred builder. You can see the difference there. Architect works with the builder to develop town planning documents. Okay? Builder completes a high-level cost plan and compares to the development budget before we've even got it to town planning. The town planning documents are adjusted based on the cost plan analysis. So the hardest thing here for the developer is actually to put their development budget on the table to the builder. This is the biggest point of resistance. But any developer would know how much they need to build it for, and that's how much money they want to make. And it's very, very rare in this market you're actually going to get lower than that anyway at tender. So put it out on the table, talk about it, and actually design to it, and use a builder as a consultant to get you to that budget before you even lodge at town planning. So then we go, town planning documents are lodged, town planning documents are approved, bit of argy-bargy there. Then the developer engages the builder on an ECI and they agree on a target construction budget. Now, a lot of the time that's agreed at lower than what was set at the start, because any builder was going to look at it, put a bit of contingency because the design isn't even developed yet. So there's an agreement, and that's a mutual agreement. If they can't agree, we move on, take it to tender. Okay? Because the builders only really contribute a little bit of town planning. They haven't done the detail, assisted in the detailed design, so there's not much outlay there for the builder at the moment. So once that's agreed, developer then works with the architect and the builder to appoint other consultants. Right? So there's a big collaboration happening here. Who works well with each other? What have we done in the past? And I want to talk about that in a bit more detail later and how well other industries have done this. Then the detailed design is completed to 100%. So we're de-risking the whole thing. We're designing it to 100%. It's finished. This is where BIM comes in. This is where prefabrication, you actually factor all of this in. And there's regular costing milestones. So maybe at 60% we'll do a cost. Are we tracking well? Yes, no, let's adjust something. 80%, 100%. So you're not waiting to the death to see how much it costs. There's regular communication with the developer during that process. And the other key point is key subbies and suppliers get involved. We are starting to develop ECI agreements with our subbies and our suppliers. So what we're doing is we're getting rid of this tender matrix. We might tender it out to 3 or 4, say it's CLT, go and speak to 3 suppliers, let's talk to them, where you at, can you do it, can't you do it, where's the price at, and then you pick one. And you sign an agreement with them that aligns with your contract. And you bring them on the journey. And you do that for 60, 70% of your total construction cost. So the risk is really being distributed across numerous people, numerous organisations, and these subbies will give you everything. Their job's already signed up. They've got a target budget. They'll give you the resource. They'll give you the people. You'll actually get efficiency out of that process. Yeah? And the other key component here is actually completion of, I haven't mentioned this yet, but protection work notices, construction management plans, building permits. A lot of this stuff can't happen until you've appointed a builder, and they take a lot of time. Certain jobs, protection work notices, you can't really hang your crane over an adjacent property anymore. Anyone with any sense can delay you starting a construction site because you'd put in an anchor underneath their property and they're a lawyer, and it just drags on and on and on, and it costs a lot of money and you lose all this time. And the clock's ticking because you've been appointed and you're paying prelims, and it's a really bad way to start a job. So incorporate that into the process, because right at the end when you've got a final construction cost confirmed and you're still signing a D&C contract, the contract doesn't change. It's still a D&C contract. So when you actually sign it, you start not quite the next day, but the lawyers might, rack up some fees going back and forth a bit, but you actually sign a contract and start construction, which benefits everyone. And then the consultants are novated across and construction commences, and generally there's minimal design work to be required because we've aimed for 100%, and everyone, that novation's a really happy time because everyone likes each other. So when we talk about the ECI time advantages, when you look at a traditional, this is a lump sum model, but when you look at a traditional procurement or tender model compared to an ECI, there's significant savings there in that VM process, that redesign process, and that commencement of construction. And through our experiences, we're finding it's between 8 to 14 weeks. Yeah, so can you imagine as a builder going in and going at a hard-nosed tender and you win the job and you're 14 weeks faster than everyone else? That's a lot of money. So let's incorporate that into the start and offer that as a saving at the start. So I've touched on a lot of these, but it goes through the ECI process and where the advantages are. It's much more collaborative procurement model. The project design intent is maintained. It's a really important point, and the architects love this. And the amount of times I've spoken to architects about it, and the next thing they know, they rang me the next day going, yeah, got a job, I want you to meet the developer. Let's talk about ECI. Because they're actually involved in that design, and they want to protect that design, which is fair enough. And to their defence, if they're getting guided the right way about the design, look, that's a bit too expensive, they can actually still maintain that design intent. It's not getting jolted by a builder during a tender process. The builder is paid as a consultant, and they actually add value when it matters. Extremely efficient, less wasteful because we get rid of that tender matrix. The developer gets the budget and design they want. Yeah, it's really, really important. And it de-risks the project with respect to cost, time, quality, constructability and commercial arrangements for everyone. For the consultants, for the subbies, for the builder, for the developer. It's completely, say completely, will always be risk in construction, but it's significantly more de-risked. Now the point I want to make here at the end of this is it's about repetitive learning and repeat business, okay? Every single ECI we've delivered has resulted in repeat business and another ECI, and they get more efficient as you get going. And you bring the same teams on and the same subbies, and it becomes a significantly more efficient process moving forward for everyone. So being ready for change is not just about innovative products, it's about innovative ways of looking at projects and procuring projects and designing them. So going back to this graph, I really want to focus now on that procurement design process and look at how the manufacturing industry has done it, who are clearly leaps and bounds ahead of us. A lot of what Paul spoke about in manufacturing, a lot of what Christoph spoke about in timber manufacturing over in Europe, and to see where other industries are at. And you look at the car industry, and yes, they've got innovation, there's robots and less staff and all that, which is a good and bad thing, I suppose. But the key point here is that the learnings they've developed have improved the product over time. So you drive a car in the 60s compared to driving a car now, it's a better car. The product is much better. Are our buildings much better? Anyone? Yeah, they are. They are, but not to the extent as the car industry or a phone. Look at the phones back in the 60s to where they are now. Computers. All of these other areas that have had, yes, we've had some innovation, but nowhere near as much as these other people and other industries. And it's very much about how they've designed stuff and just constantly improved it. Could you imagine if say, Mazda went and tendered every one of their car models to different manufacturers, different suppliers, different designers? How much your car would cost? I don't know if you watch The Simpsons, they did once that for Homer. Homer designed his own car once and it was a total disaster. But getting off the point, but if we start looking at this from a construction perspective and start repeating the same teams and learning from our mistakes and having that repeat learning process and repeat business, it's going to improve the way we design and think and construct and deliver buildings. And this is where we see ECI as really an opportunity to do that, to start getting that repetition in the process to deliver much better products like other industries in manufacturing have done. So I started off in construction, I then went into manufacturing, and now I'm back into construction again. And I had to take a step back for the first 12 months and watch us as Atelier tender on jobs. And I had this vision of a dog chasing its tail. Right? And we really need to stop doing that. We need to just stop chasing our tails and actually start being productive, not only as builders, but as an entire industry, because that's the way we're going to start allowing collaboration to come in, allow innovation to come in, and increase the quality of our buildings and delivery of our buildings and reduce the costs as well. So thank you.